Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the banks of the Pequabic River here in Bristol, Connecticut. The Pequabic River runs starting in northwest Connecticut, cuts through in Bristol starting on the west side, comes right through the center of town and continues through to Plainville. 1955, the flood of 55 overwhelmed our city and led to a series of flood improvement projects, including putting the Pequabic underground for the large part of its presence in downtown, many of which people have rued to this day. But that was the right thing to do, and today, 60 years later, we continue to battle with flood improvement projects based on the balance that we have between environment, development, adding to our grand list, and the need to protect the river as well as the power of water and the damage that it can do in our community. So over the last week, starting with the remnants of Storm Fred, we have seen an incredible amount of rainfall here in Bristol. But we have also been very fortunate. Unlike last August and in previous storms, including Irene, we did not see any level of flooding here in Bristol, in large part due to the coordinated efforts of our city departments, Water and Sewer Department and Public Works, where we have taken some significant steps in order to be on top of and be proactive with what happens in the river. So today I have with me our Water Superintendent, Rob Longo, Assistant Superintendent, Dan Bolduc, and our Public Works Director, who are going to just give you brief snippets about the actions that we've taken over the course of the last 6 weeks to get where we were for this weekend.
Hi, I'm Rob Longo, Superintendent of Bristol Water and Sewer. With the unprecedented amount of rainfall that we've had this spring and summer, we took some preliminary actions on starting July 15th to actually lower our reservoirs. It is unprecedented for us to do that in the industry that we're in. It's actually a very risky move for us to do that because if we got into a very warm September area and we needed that water, but we were very concerned in our department if we had another storm such as last year come through. And it was a proactive flood control measure. We know all of our reservoirs feed into the Poland Brook up in Burlington area and actually come down into the Pequabic. During Irene, we had historic flooding, and we were unable to control the water coming out of our reservoirs. So we started July 15th bringing them down with a goal of being at 90%. On August 15th, we were actually at 87%. Unfortunately, the remnants of Fred brought us right back up. We got about 3.5 inches of rain on Wednesday. So we started from there actually bringing them back down, and we had crews working throughout the entire week up until midnight on Saturday, controlling levels at the reservoirs to bring them down. I have to thank Dan Bolduc, our Assistant Superintendent, for coordinating that. But we were able to get it down to a level that we were able to hold water back. So that water wasn't able to go over the spillways, and when it does, we cannot control it. So if we have a control mechanism, we could stop the amount of water coming down into the Pequabic, which has historically, as I said, during Irene and other storms, caused major flooding. This area you're in right now, during Irene, was over the banks of the river. I remember being here at the time. So to see what we have today, it looks like our proactive approach actually worked out in our favor. So.
Good job. Make sure you say who you are.
Ray Rogozinski, Director of Public Works, for the City of Bristol. As the Mayor indicated, Bristol has ongoing, has had flooding issues in the past. For us, planning doesn't start the week before the event. We have done a lot of work even leading up to it. Not just a couple of weeks before and days before, but even some of the projects we have implemented. So where the Pequabic River comes in to the the copper mine comes into the Pequabic, we replaced the bridge at Frederick Street, which has caused flooding on previous storms. We've also replaced a couple bridges, as currently we're in the process of replacing Memorial Boulevard bridge, and we have slated Mellon Street Bridge and East Street Bridge, and we're also working on a retaining wall now, along with removing sediment from some of our conduits, even the Pequabic River conduit. So we have had capital projects the last couple of years with the support of the Mayor and the Board of Finance to fund projects to eliminate and reduce flooding. Leading up to the storm, Public Works concentrated on going to the flood-prone areas, jetting storm lines, cleaning catch basins in preparation to the storm. And actually Thursday's storm for Bristol was more severe than even over the weekend. And one of the tools that I was able to utilize both on Wednesday, Thursday storm and over the weekend was approximately 400 feet up from where we're standing on the Pequabic River. We have a USGS water gauge station. So literally every 5 minutes I can look and see what the river water surface elevation is, and I was able to monitor it through the storm. So Wednesday it was at 8 feet, during the storm event. Over the weekend at its high point it was 3.8. It has since gone down, and through actually an app I have on my phone, I'm able to get an alert if it gets to the point that it's 10 feet above a base flow elevation. Once again, that's a tool for us just to monitor storm levels when we're not looking at the river ourselves. So, thank you.
Okay.
So as Superintendent Rob Longo stated, it's been a challenge draining the reservoirs. We've gotten about almost 6 inches of rain since Wednesday. So as of now, we are continuing to lower our reservoirs as much as we possibly can. Today we're expecting to get another 2 to 4 inches of rain, so we're trying to get the reservoirs down as much as we possibly can. Also trying to get them down as much as we can to also maintain a good water level for production reasons wise. But that's about all I got.
All right. Mayor, thanks so much for having me. The governor has asked me to go to the western part of the state. He is in the eastern part of the state because still out in eastern Connecticut, we have approximately 8,000 homes without power. And Avangrid this morning is reporting about 1,000 people out of power. And we've been assured by the utility companies that by later today and into tomorrow, most of those homes will have their power restored. So we're very pleased that Connecticut dodged a major bullet, and we didn't have hundreds of thousands of people in our state without power. Having said that, we are not quite out of the woods yet because the weather report that the governor and I got from the National Weather Service this morning is that we are going to have another several inches of rain depending on the part of the state that you're in. And we're here in Bristol to take a look at examples of high water and potential flooding threats. I want to commend Mayor Zappo and her administration for taking very proactive steps to ensure that we will not have flooding in Bristol. But there are a couple of big concerns that the governor and I have for today. Number one is standing water. We got a lot of water yesterday. So please, if you're driving and you see water, we still have road closures across the state because of high water levels. Please do not drive through pools of standing water. Be very careful about that. Second, be careful about potential flash flooding. We are expecting thunderstorms and some heavy rain throughout the state. And finally, the accident that we had several weeks ago in the Farmington River where kids went swimming is really important to keep in mind. You see how fast this water is moving. We are expecting some hot weather tomorrow and later this week, and we are advising people not to go swimming for 72 hours. One reason is you see this very fast water levels that we are having all around the state. The other is there are very high bacteria levels because our sewage systems around the state are overwhelmed. So our public health commissioner has asked that people not go swimming for the next 72 hours in some of our public recreation areas. Let me just say that we had a good experience with the utility companies yesterday. the steps that our legislature and PURA put into place ensured that the utility companies were ready to deal with the weather, and the mayors and first selectmen that the governor and I talked with across the state yesterday during the storm and this morning tell us that they had their municipal liaisons either in their emergency operations centers or they were in direct and frequent communication, and municipal leaders are reporting to the governor and I today about the responsiveness of the utility companies to mayors and first selectmen. So again, just want to urge the people of Connecticut to be careful about driving through standing water, be careful of flooding, and don't swim for the next couple of days in public recreational areas. And with that, I'll bring the mayor back up and we'll try to answer any questions that you might have. Brian Foley, come right up here and say a couple of words. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No one cut me off. Thank you, LG. And thank you, Mayor. So the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection has a full activation of the Emergency Operations Center as we speak. Division of Emergency Management is monitoring what happens around the state. We do have our urban search and rescue team staged in Hartford, centrally located, along with the Swiftwater Rescue. The Evacuation Task Force, which is so many state agencies and the Connecticut National Guard, also met this morning, and they are staged for any rescues. Let me give you an idea of how that should work, though, in simple terms. Most flooding situations, most water over the roadways, most typical rescues are handled very well by the local fire departments, the local police departments, and local municipalities. The state monitors those situations through the liaisons, and when it becomes too big, when it becomes too serious, that's when the state comes in and it provides resources and assistance to those local municipalities, and that's when a Swiftwater rescue team or urban search and rescue would be deployed in those things. But typically, the local towns do a fantastic job. We ask people, don't drive through water over the roadway. We saw what happened on 91 yesterday. There's debris in those puddles that you don't see, you don't know about. Just give it a little time and let the water come back down. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, LG.
Thank you. Thank you. And one other thing, we urge people to be careful of fallen wires because we're still getting reports of tree damage falling on wires, and we actually had some fires in the town of Voluntown yesterday because wires were down, causing brush fires. So with that, Mayor, come on up, and if there are any questions for the mayor or I or any of these experts, we're happy to help.
Can someone from the city just sort of recap maybe in numbers of inches, just what you've been dealing with kind of over the past month in terms of rain and sort of how you've been dealing with it? Just kind of a quick recap of some of what we're talking about.
So over the past month, it hasn't been too bad. If you remember, we had all that rain through the historic July rainfall. We did have the remnants of Fred come in. I believe we got about 3.5 inches of rain in our reservoir system. And then during the tropical storm, we got about 2.15. So we do anticipate hearing the weather forecast that the Lieutenant Governor had said another 2 to 4 today. So that could make it overwhelming. We feel we're low enough right now to maintain the river level the way it is.
Last Thursday, during that rainstorm of Louisiana Avenue, where the new bridge was,
I'll turn that to Public Works.
was that just from just a heavy rainfall?
So that really is a good example. So you mentioned the issue of that we had at Louisiana Avenue, and we just replaced the bridge. But the issue wasn't the bridge and the bridge replacement. When we went out there and assessed the situation, you'll see that the river was below what's called the bottom corridor, below the bottom of the bridge. So there was a lot of capacity still available in Louisiana Bridge, and even the area of Louisiana Avenue Bridge, didn't have standing water. Up the street a little bit, approximately 200 feet, at the intersection of John and Louisiana Avenue, there was standing water, the same type of water that the Lieutenant Governor just cautioned, residents in the state not to drive through because you don't know how deep it is, and that was really a function of a clogged catch basin. Still not still something we're addressing and not good, but it wasn't Louisiana Avenue. It was a localized flooding issue, and Thursday's storm, because of the intensity and the rainfall in a short amount of time, really caused a number of isolated flooding areas throughout Bristol that we had to address, that resulted in standing water. So when we listen to the reports as we're preparing for emergency management, when they say 6 to 3 inches, as Public Works Director, our biggest concern is over what period of time is that going to receive. When we get 4 or 5 inches of rain in an hour, like we did on Wednesday, Thursday, that's a problem for local storm drainage systems. When we get 10 inches over a 24-hour period, it becomes an issue for our major rivers, Coppermine and the Pequabic. And one of the issues that we even are working at very long term is really, even from a development perspective, the amount of impervious area, pavement within a watershed. And through our zoning regulations, we are implementing measures that really new development tries to reduce the impact of long-term flooding in the community.
And can you just say your name and title again for us?
Ray Rogozinski, Director of Public Works.
Ray, I'm going to trouble you to spell your last name.
Rogozinski.
Thank you.
Ray, did you have any issues with trees coming down into any of the roads or utility lines with this particular storm?
No, we did not. We did have one tree come down in one of the parks in the area of Page Park, this morning, but it wasn't a problem with overhead wires.
Lieutenant Governor, we spoke to the success that this community has seen to prevent flooding issues in large parts of the mayor and her team. What have we seen elsewhere? Has there been any significant flooding that you folks have been aware of that is being responded to? We saw Manchester.
Manchester had to evacuate an apartment building because of flash flooding, and we are concerned about urban flooding because when you have a lot of pavement, there's nowhere for the water to go. So there still is a concern in the greater New Haven, greater Waterbury area about flooding right now. And one of the things that Ray was talking about in terms of urban areas is the importance of resilience. And wetlands across the state traditionally, before there was a lot of development, were able to take on lots of water when there was severe weather. And now in areas like Bristol and Bridgeport, there's less opportunity, and so we have to be careful of flooding.
Brian, could you speak to the importance of staging ahead of time? God forbid we see something like we saw earlier this summer, and is it something that you have done before?
Yeah, so let's go 2 things. One, you saw what happened with that hotel with the Hockenham bubbling up last night in Manchester. Should that have gotten too crazy or too difficult for local first responders to get there, the Swiftwater Rescue Team was sitting right at Brainerd Airport, about 15 or 20 minutes away, and we would have already started heading that way if it got to be too difficult. Thankfully, it didn't. So we monitor those types of situations. If you look what happened in, let's say, the Hartford region just last Thursday, I believe, Thursday morning, so many people got stuck in puddles around the city and called 911 that the 911 system got somewhat inundated and was bouncing to other towns. So we ask people, don't try to drive through those types of puddles. The water will recede over time. Please take your time. You help the first responders by not getting stuck yourself. That's the best we can ask. Please don't get stuck so that the first responders can handle the true emergencies. Thank you.
Both of you first, can you come up to the mic just to get your names down and final, please?
It's Robert Longo, Longo, Superintendent, Bristol Water and Sewer Department.
Dan Bolduc, Assistant Superintendent of Water Supply and Treatment. Last name Bolduc.
Everybody good? Anybody need anything? Okay. Thank you.